I always tell every of my client that stop handling objections and start eliminating it. And yes, there is a way where you can actually completely eliminate the objection rather than wasting your time in handling those objections, because when you get into that zone of handling those objections, it's just those pushy conversations that happens, and no one loves those conversations. So how can you actually do that? So before I go and show you exactly how to do that, you would yourself have seen those scenarios where you get those objections. I need to think about it. Now is not a great time. Send me an email. Can you give me a discount? It does not matter if you're a coach, consultant, or a service provider, whatever you do. But these are some scenarios you would have gone through yourself. And then you end up sending follow up email after email, message after message, call after call. You wait, but nothing happens. The reason follow ups are not working is not that your follow ups are bad or your offer is bad, but the reason they don't work is because the prospect never felt enough pain to change and make that decision. And here's what most salespeople do wrong: they treat objections like a problem to solve. They push back, they give logics, they try to find their way to getting a yes. But there's, remember, objections are not problems, they are the symptoms. You think it is a real problem, but no, it is a symptom. That's why you get an objection. So the real problem the prospect didn't buy from you is because your prospect didn't felt enough pain to change. Fix that and your objection will disappear. And let me show you how to do that and why is this really important. So I'll give you a psychology of why someone wants the change and what actually makes people buy from you. Forget about the features, forget about the benefits, forget even about your credentials. There are only two things that cause human to get that change. One is the current pain of being where they are. They're just not comfortable being where they are. The pain is too big to stay in the same situation. And second, the fear of future pain, of what if this situation continues to persist. These are the only two things that makes people want to change, nothing else. And that's the whole game. If your prospect doesn't feel the current pain intensely and they can't clearly picture what worse will happen if nothing changes, they will never buy from you. And most salespeople, what they do, they try to sell a dream, the transformation, imagine the life after. But does that really work? Does people really want to buy a dream? Do they really take action for the dream? There's that sales technique used to work years back, but now it does not works anymore, because dreams feels good, but it never closes those deals. Remember this, guys. People don't move towards pleasure, they run away from pain. Sell the problem, not the solution. And if you have been thinking, why my offer is not working, it's so amazing, the transformation is so amazing, because you're selling the wrong thing. They are not looking for the solution, they are trying to run away from the pain. So sell that. And I'll show you how to do that right now, so you can completely eliminate every time you get that objection. So if in every sales call you do this properly, you'll never get the objection. Now let me tell you how to do this properly. So there are 6 layers of pain, or I follow the 6 layer framework, which is of course going deeper than the service surface. And here's the 90%, here's what 90% salespeople do wrong. They stop at the layer 1 and it costs them the sale every single time. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are selling health coaching for entrepreneurs who are going through low energy. That's what you're selling. Most salespeople will pitch at layer 1. You will have more energy, you will have better focus, you'll feel amazing. All right, but that's not enough for making a decision. And that's not why someone buys. So let me show you what are the 6 layers that you should be going through. So the surface level layer is low energy and poor focus. That's the main challenge they came to you for. But that's not where sales happen. The second layer, you have to dig deeper. That all right. So how has that been impacting your work? That is layer number two. Because they will be like, because of this low energy, my performance has been really poor. I have been missing deadlines after deadlines. That's layer number two. Then you go even deeper, which is the business risk. Hmm. So, because this has been happening inside your work, how has that been affecting your business? My revenue has been dropping, and that has been causing my business to get into that stagnation point. That's where the real pain starts getting out. All right. So, this is where you find the real current situation. That's how deeper you're going into. You ask questions and questions to find the real reason that is making them to make this change. Then once you find the real reason, level 4 is making them picture the future. So what would be the worst? What would happen if this continues to go on like this? They'll be like, my business will shut down. There will be no income at all. And then how would that impact your family? I'll not be able to provide to my family. Will my relationship will get like really bad, or it will cause strain on my relationship. Hmm. And how would that person impact you? I lose my self worth, broken as provider and leader. So that's what you're doing, right, guys? If you see how much in depth I'm going, I'm asking question after question to understand the current situation and then even making them realize how would it impact their future. So the sale is made at layer 6. This is where the real sales are made, not at layer 1. And most salespeople never get past to the layer 1 because that's uncomfortable. And if you really want to make the sale, you will have to be willing to get uncomfortable. But most people don't want to get into that discomfort. And that's why you're losing the sale. And because of this, people end up wasting tons of money. So let me just show you now. Let's say you have done this. You have really done this. You will see a lot of objections you'll never get from now. But even if you got the objection, how to handle it then? So I'll take an objection of, let's say the person said not right now. So this is something I have seen Jeremy Lee Miner do. So I'd really love this way of handling, and I have been using it, and it has worked like charm for me as well. So I would be using this the D frame analogy. So I just made it better, and I have been using it now. So the D frame analogy. So let's say they give you an objection not right now. So how to handle it? So you're like, yeah, that's so let's say the prospect say that yes, we really liked what you had to say, but now's not a great time. We'll circle back then when some of our things settle down. That's, let's say people said to you this. What most salespeople will do, they'll argue, they'll give some analogies, they'll try to sell them, but the result prospect don't give you anything and they ghost you. But what you'll be doing is this. Here's what actually works. One question you'll ask with a concerned tone, not aggressive, with a concerned tone. Very important, guys. So the way you'll be asking is, how can I communicate to you that you might be making a mistake without without you being upset with me? So the tonality is very important. Concern tonality. You should not be like, how can I communicate with you that you are making a mistake without you being upset with me? Don't do it like that. All right, your tonality is what matters. All right. So once they'll be like once they answer you, like, let me tell you why this works so well. So this question does three things simultaneously. All right, it breaks their pattern. They have no scripted response for this. They have never heard this anywhere else. All right, that's first thing. Your tone signals that you know something they don't, which creates doubt in their own frame. And third, it opens the door back without you ever pushing. Very important. So you can't win an argument, guys, but you can make someone doubt their certainty. And that's what the deframe means. What we are doing with the question and our concern tonality is we are making them doubt their own decision. And that's where the sale starts to happening. This is called an ADBQ, an assumption disrupting backtrack question. All right. It doesn't attack their objection, it takes them out of their frame entirely, start making them doubt. And once they say, sure, what's going on, the real conversation begins. So then we'll be re looping them with their fame. All right. So once they say yes, once you do the deframe, don't pitch. Ask the questions that reconnect them to their pain. All right. Work through those 6 layers using these questions, not statement. We'll not be using statements. We'll be just using questions again. So they can start feeling the pain, because question, when they say it by themselves, it's always 10x harder than what you say. So you'll again just use those questions like, so what happens if you keep pushing this back and nothing changes? They'll be like, XYZ will happen. What does that mean for your business 6 months from now? How does your spouse feels about you still dealing with this? How does do they want you to stay in the same situation? Like these are just example questions. You can definitely create your own questions, but what we're trying to do is we are trying to get them to feel the pain again. All right. Never tell them what will happen. Ask them. When they say it out loud, they own it. All right. So, like, what happens if you keep pushing this again and nothing changes? What does that mean for your business 6 months from now? See, if you notice what's happening here is you're not pitching a solution, you're walking them through their future pain layer by layer using their own words. You are not doing anything. And by the time, once you have done this, final question, all right, which is the superpower. So, what should we do now to make sure that never happens? Boom. That's where they take the frame, they sell themselves to you. They'll be like, I should make the change. So, how should you make the change? By investing in this. That's where the real thing happens. All right. So, they already know the answer. This is the final question we ask. So, I'll just tell you before. So, what we do is identity frame. Before we go with this question, remember, we don't go it with this right now. We'll be going with this later. Once we have done this, we have made them realize their pain again. All right. We'll be then changing their identity completely. So, why look at doing this now? Why not to push it down the road like a lot of executives who never fix their health and never quite reach the next level? So, why not? Why to do that? So, what we are doing is we are making them changing the frame. All right. So, nobody wants to be this person. The one who always say, everyone will always say that I don't want to procrastinate. I don't want to do this. So, what is happening is we are changing their identity. So, here, rather than thinking about it, think about it, they're going to think like, what will happen? So, you are not selling them on buying, you're selling them on who they want to be. That's what they're doing right now in here. Super powerful stuff, super powerful stuff. So, the identity frame works because humans make decisions based on who they believe they are. When you connect inaction to the identity, they always reject that. And connect action to the identity they want, they close themselves. That's why it is so powerful. So you didn't push, you didn't argue, you didn't fight, you asked the right questions. So what happened? Once you ask this, why look at doing this now? They'll be like, I cannot wait to do it in the future. And then we do the final close, which is, so what should we do now? And then they close themselves. That's the power. So just to give you a summary, guys, how it works. So never the biggest reason people never close a sale is because they're always going with the surface level pain. Do not do that. Use my 6 layer deep question framework to go into the real pain. Once they have gotten to the real pain, just deframe their own personality. Make them doubt what they just said using the deframe question. Then you repaint the loop. All right, you make them understand their own problem again. Once we have done that, we frame the identity, we get them to a complete new identity who is an action taker, and then we let them close themselves. We be like, so what should we do now? And they answered the question themselves to you. All right. So, guys, remember, stop trying to overcome objections. Start diagnosing whether your prospect actually feels enough pain to change or not. And if they're objecting, that means you haven't gone deep enough. Go back, ask better question, get to that layer 6. The sale was never about the product, guys. Always remember, it was always about their pain. Go find it using this framework, and you'll see huge, huge impact in your own sales skills.